Yeah, for sure. Hey everyone, my name is Monesi. I'm a junior in Cs. I study CS. I'm in core. I've been in core for the past few years, and I really enjoy talking about and like teaching about customer discovery through like Founder School, which is this like workshop series that we have in core, and also for the past couple semesters for CVC, especially the undergrad challenge. So I'll go ahead and screen share. Also, it's a pretty intimate group today. So like if you have any questions, we're recording, but just like honestly, just feel free to shout them out and interrupt. Yeah. Okay. One second. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let's get started. So I think it's important to kick it off by just talking a little bit about why customer discovery is important. And I'll put this a lot in context with the undergrad challenge. Oh, I was definitely supposed to put a picture there. In terms of the undergrad challenge and like why there's so much of a focus on talking to customers. So yeah, why is talking to potential customers important when like building a product or like having seeds of an idea and building into something bigger? One, it's identifying pain points of the customer size, like the demographic that you're trying to reach through this idea that you have. A lot of the times when you talk to people who are in this demographic or like interacting with similar products to the one that you want to build, it's really important to figure out like what currently isn't working for them, like what is causing them a lot of pain, like what is costing them a lot of money, what's really annoying about this product to them. And after you identify that, you can figure out, oh, how can I potentially solve this? Two is understanding the need of it. A lot of the times problems really annoy people and cost them a little bit of money and time, but is there a need for it in the sense of like, will people go out of their way to actually find a solution for it? Are the current solutions working? Like, are the current solutions sufficient? A lot of the times, like sometimes people might not care that it costs them a little bit of time if it's cheaper and the current solution is like fine. So figuring it out if it's a need rather than something that they want and like, oh, this would be good, but it's something that's actually they would buy, that they would purchase. Three, you might not be the customer or user that the product is aimed for. A lot of the times when like, at least in like these type of competitions like CVC or like the undergrad challenge and also the other challenges within CVC, most of the times you're building a product that solves a problem that you face in your daily life, but oftentimes like when you pivot, you might not be tackling a problem that you personally face. So it's really important to talk to people who are actually interacting with the problem that you're trying to solve. Even then though, let's say you're building a product that solves a problem that you are currently facing. Everyone is different. Like, even though we face very similar problems as college students, we deal with them in different ways. So it's important to learn about how different people deal with those problems and the current solutions that they're using for it. And four, I think it's like interesting because you can figure out like, hey, is like, am I the best person for this? Not necessarily am I like the smartest person for this, or like, am I the most talented person for this, or like, do I do I have like the entire knowledge base for this? But no, it's like, am I the best person for this in terms of like, am I passionate enough about this? Do I think that I can put in the time to solve this problem? Do I enjoy talking to people, figuring out if this is right for you? And if it's not, pivoting to an idea that excites you a little bit more. All right, where can I start? So start by identifying the ideal problem. This is interesting because like you're actually supposed to be doing this like while you're doing customer discovery. So thinking about a problem space and then talking to people who interact in that problem space. And then while talking to them, you should be thinking about these 6 metrics. One, is it popular? So when you talk to more people, you'll figure out like, oh, is this even a problem that a lot of people face, or is it very niche? And it's fine to solve a niche problem, but product growth is a lot better if it helps reach more people. 2, isn't urgent. Is this something that people need right now and that people are willing to, or that they want and need right now? 3, is it mandatory? Is this something that like checks off a lot of boxes for them? Is it something that tackles a very specific problem efficiently? Growing, do you see potential in it? 5, is it expensive, as in like, will people buy it, right? Like, or will people buy it because it's expensive for them? I'll clarify. Like, does it cost them a lot of money? And not only does it cost them a lot of money, but do they care that it costs them a lot of money? And then 5 or like 6, is it a frequent problem? Is this something that they face very often? And then I think like all of these combine in the sense of like, do they care? Do customers care that it costs them a lot of money? Do customers care that it's frequent, for example? Do they care that it's like a problem that they face very often? And then only if they care about this problem, then they will go out and buy it. Yeah, this is a really important one. Do not start from the solution. I think it's really easy to think, like when you're ideating, to think of ideas and be like, oh, this is a really cool product to build. And then working backwards of like, oh, this is a really cool product. And I think it would sort of help people in XYZ ways. You could totally do that. You could totally start from the solution if you want to build something cool and just like put it out there on the internet, or on GitHub or something. But if you do want to build a product that has a lot of potential, that can reach a lot of people, that can grow really fast and make you a shit ton of money, then it's important to be like, okay, I'm gonna talk to people, see if this is a problem that exists, see if it's a problem that's urgent, mandatory, people face frequently, and then from there building a solution. So starting from a problem and working to a solution rather than the other way around. And like, to be clear, it's fine to work the other way around, like solution to problem. But if you do want to build out a company and like a startup, start with a problem. So how do you do this? It's called user research. I'm sure you guys, maybe some of you heard of the Mom Test. It's a pretty popular book in terms of like how to talk to customers and how to talk to users in the problem space that you're exploring. Essentially, this book is called the Mom Test because the whole premise is like, when you talk to people about some sort of product, or like you have a product in mind and now you need to talk to people about it, you're not supposed to think or only take in the feedback that's positive, like your mom would give you. So if you talk to your mom and you're like, hey mom, I want to learn how to skateboard, your mom is going to support you. She's going to be like, yeah, go for it. Like, it's a good idea. Do it. Or if you pitch your mom an idea, most likely she's going to support you because she loves you. Like, it's just the default from your mom of getting positive feedback. That's how the author relays how people give you feedback on your product if you ask them about it. So if I ask Martina, like, hey, I'm building a clock that has an alarm that sets at like 6:30 a.m. and if it doesn't sense that I wake up, it's going to spray me every morning. Would you buy that? Martina, being like a nice human being, as most people are, and like people pleasers, will say, yeah, sure, I'd buy it. Hypothetically, yeah, sure, I'd buy it. Just like your mom would be like, yeah, sure, do it, whatever. The whole point of this book is to be like, do not ask people about this idea that you have verbatim, or ask about their thoughts or opinions on your product, but instead focus on how they interact with the problem space. So how they interact with this problem that you're trying to solve through your product. How do they currently deal with it? How have they dealt with it in the past? How do they deal with it now? How much is it costing them? So that leads into point A, talk about their life instead of your idea. If you have an idea, like the big thing is to like not even bring up the idea that you have like at all. Because you're just like inevitably by default going to get positive feedback on it. Sort of put yourself in this situation. If someone asks about a product idea that they have, like, you're going to be like, yeah, it's good. You have no stake in it. Your life is not on the line. You're going to people please and be like, yeah, sure, do it, whatever. So instead, figure out like, one, how they deal with the idea, like how they deal with this problem currently. Do they buy it right now? How much time are they spending on it? How does their behavior and psychology revolve around this? Be asking about specifics in the past and not generics or opinions about the future. We'll get into this a little bit later, but like a lot of the times when you ask people about generics, you get really, really faulty answers in the sense of like, let's say I ask you, how many times do you open your phone a day? Likely, I mean, most people will underestimate, right? Like they'll be like, okay, I open my phone probably like 7 or 8 times a day, which is like probably wrong. I probably turn on my phone like once every 20 minutes and like scroll, or like once every 30 minutes, and times like, I don't know, 13. And then also the amount of time that I spend on my phone, like I turn it on, but then I also spend a lot of time. So people usually underestimate and respond in ways that they want to be and they hope to be rather than what's the current reality. So in order to avoid that and to like um get away from people just underestimating or overestimating the ways that they want to be, ask very specific and pointed questions like, what's your screen time? Or like, how many, I think these are like metrics that you can get on your iPhone, like on settings, like how many times do you open this app a day? So you'll get actual answers that are real and that can actually help you with building a product rather than what people think they do. And then lastly, talk less and listen more. Listen to more about people's stories, what they have to say about, like, in this case, like how often they go on their phone. If you're building like a productivity app, figure out how they interact with their phone in this case, or like how much time they go on their phone, or like, do they have other apps that like help reduce their screen time, figuring out what they currently do rather than you just like bombarding them with questions and your thoughts on their behavior. Therefore, there are good and bad questions. Let's say I'm building like, again, like let's say I'm building this like productivity app that helps people manage their time better and helps them like set tasks, helps them maybe like helps them set tasks, helps organize what they need to do that day. 3, maybe like connects with your own phone settings to like reduce screen time on certain apps, stuff like that. So let's say I just ask someone, how often do you go on your phone a day for 10 or more minutes? Yeah, I think again, likely people would probably just say a few times. Also like no one really knows, right? Or let's say I ask, would you use this app that helps with time management and productivity when we launch in 3 months? Can anyone name just like a few issues that you might see with either one of the questions? You can answer either one. Let's say you're in a customer discovery interview, let's say you're talking to your target demographic, which is like people our age. So like Gen Z, Gen X, millennials, just like people who use their phone and are familiar with apps, can use them. Why would these questions pose poor results? Yeah, I can answer it. It's just like, how often is really generic, right? Like no one really knows at all. No one has an answer, and therefore their answer will be wrong. And oftentimes, again, what you hope to be rather than what you are. And the second one, would you use this app that helps people with time management? Would is like a really, really bad, it's like a really bad term that you should not use in customer discovery like interviews, because what is again is a it's like a super hypothetical term, right? Like no one knows if they would do something. You only can gauge people's interest and like if they'd actually use it if you put it in front of them and see how they interact with it, or if you ask them to pay on the spot. Otherwise, like, this is really important, do not use these hypothetical terms. I did like the summer design challenge a couple years ago, and this professor who teaches, her name is Lydia Chilton. I think she teaches user interface design, and I think a few other like human-centered design courses. Anyway, she does a lot with customer discovery and customer interviews and stuff. And her main takeaway from like the course was, don't ask people to answer your hypothetical questions, because you'll always get positive results, yeses for them, which is wrong. And therefore lead you in the wrong direction when you're building a product, which you want to avoid. Okay. These are just some examples that I think are very common questions that people ask in like Google Forms or like surveys or like feedback. feedback forms, or even if you just like are talking to someone about your idea in this interview, which are like should be avoided at all costs. One is like, do you think this is a good idea? 99% of the time you'll get a yes, this is a good idea. Would you buy a product that did X? Again, it's like you're likely going to get a yes response. Maybe you'll get like, maybe I'll buy it. But because these are hypotheticals, right? Like would, when you see would, or do you think this is a good idea? Just keep in mind that inherently people are people pleasers. They have nothing on the line, right? When they say it's a good idea or I'd buy it, because it's not costing them money. The only thing that they want to avoid is you being sad that I said that I don't think your idea is good. Instead, again, like ask these pointed questions. Talk me through the last time that happened, or talk me through your workflow, or what else have you tried? These are really, really pointed questions. One really important one is like, talk me through the last time that happened. This is really important because it forces people to recall literally the last time this certain event happened. Thinking about it and thinking about how they interacted with that, right? Like, talk me through your workflow. What did you do specifically? What else have you tried is really important, because it's like, let's say you are, again, building this like productivity app. What you can ask them, like, what productivity apps do you have right now, to figure out how they currently deal, or what current solutions they have in mind and use. And then you can be like, oh, what currently doesn't work with it? Like, what problems do you face with it? Digging in deeper, sort of, and figuring out what problems exist in the solutions that they interact with currently. Lastly, who else should I talk to? Is there anything else I should have asked? This is really cool because I didn't know these were like good questions to ask actually when I was first learning about this. I didn't know that at the end of the interview, you should be like, who else should I talk to? This is really important because if the interview, or like if the interaction with you and this other person went well, they'll likely lead you to someone else that they recommend you talk to in the similar demographic, or even in different, like different stakeholder in the audience that you're trying to reach. And your network expands, one, and two, you get different insights about this problem space, which is really important because people deal with problems differently. They deal with the same problem differently. Is there anything else I should ask? Yeah, just ask that question, because people likely have thoughts that they want to bring up that couldn't have been answered in the questions that you asked. So it's a good way to just open up the floor.
Can I jump in for a moment?
Yeah.
Yeah, just like in terms of like, oh, who else should I reach out to is really important. One of my friends who's like actually in the Lion launch last year actually, and then like she's like struggling to find her co-founder, and then like she's interviewing one person, and then like she asked this question, and then she actually like found her co-founder through this question. So it's really important because the connection is always there, and it's actually a way for you to network with other people and to meet new people who are share the same interests as you. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, this is really important. It's this concept that is brought up in the mom test. It's called like digging, dig. So when you're conducting user research, I'm using this synonymously with customer discovery. Identify the root problem that the user faces. Why do they face that problem? Have they actively searched for a solution? Is this even a problem like big enough that they would want to pay for a fix? Okay, yeah, so in the mom test, the author, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Anyway, he talks about how he was working at this like digital marketing agency, I think, and he had to build out some sort of visualization tool for MTV. So MTV reaches out to his company and is like, hey, we want to show our customers their metrics for this past week, and like how many people they've reached, how much money they've gained, and overall like how well this certain product is doing. So he goes in, he builds out this like really big, like intricate dashboard to show MTV all these new metrics that they're asking for. It has colors, it's very usable, and it like looks really pretty takes him several days to build out, goes back to MTV and they're like, hey, can you actually give this one report to us in a PDF form? And he's like, okay, sure. He goes back to his dashboard and he builds out a PDF export feature. So essentially that just means like whatever's being shown on the dashboard, you can click export as a PDF, click on that, and then it gives you a PDF version of like whatever's being shown. So he's like, hey, just built out the feature, also attaching the PDF here. They're like, okay, MTV's like, awesome, looks great, thank you. They go back and the next week, MTV's like, hey, can you like send this to us again as like, not a PDF this time, but as like a CSV file. And he's like, okay, sure, whatever. Goes back into the data dashboard, takes a few days to write out this export feature, does it. And he's like, hey guys, I added this feature. Like, again, like there's these export features on the dashboard. Also, you can see them in like these cool ways. Again, I'm attaching this to the email, but I have these features that I've built out, sending them again. MTV's like, thank you so much. They get back to him a week later. It's like, hey, like, can we get the weekly report as a PDF? He's like, man, like I already built this feature out. And they're like, can you add this to it? And in the PDF, they ask him, they're like, oh, can you just add like the logo of this company and like other aesthetics? And he's like, sure, adds the logo, gives them the PDF, adds in a few more aesthetics that they're asking for in like big font. He says, look, like I built out this awesome dashboard. It has these very cool metrics on it. It looks really pretty. And I built all these features, like these export features. You can do X, Y, and Z. It has these awesome, cool features that you can work around in the dashboard. And he's like, why aren't you using them? Why aren't you using these features that I built out? They get back to him and they're like, oh, awesome dashboard. We actually just wanted cool, flashy numbers that we wanted to show to our customers. We just kind of wanted two really flashy numbers that we could send to them on an easy PDF in big font, just to be like, hey, this is everything that we're accomplishing. So long story short, he took like a whole week and a half to build out this dashboard. That's like very complicated to build, has very cool features. However, the only thing that MTV was looking for at the end of the day was like two flashy numbers on a PDF that they wanted to send to their stakeholders. So he's in hindsight, he's like, man, I should have, the whole time he should have been like, oh, once they asked him to build out this dashboard, he should have been like, okay, cool. Who is this dashboard for? What metrics specifically do you need in what format? And sort of like why? More importantly, why do you need this dashboard built? He could have like avoided this whole process and all this time and energy just by asking the simple question of like, why do you need this? Who is this going for? And why is this important? So digging into sort of like the things that people are asking you for expands to user interviews. If someone's like, hey, this is a problem that I'm facing. This is a problem that I'm facing. It's really important for you to ask a bunch of follow-up questions and learn about the intention behind this problem and their behavior behind this problem and why they interact with the problem the way that they do. Long story short, when you're conducting user research, do not ask to validate your idea. If you have a product in mind, it's like going to ruin the whole interview. If you're like, do you like this product? Would you use it? You're going to get a yes. It provides zero value to you. In fact, it provides negative value almost, because you get all this positive feedback, and almost to the third point, like if you get all this positive feedback and you only listen to positive feedback, it's a false positive, right? And you're going to go down the wrong direction with your product. Secondly, only ask questions about, or do not only ask questions about your idea. Like that doesn't make any sense, because the point of doing customer discovery and user research isn't to get people's thoughts on your idea. It's to get their thoughts on that problem that you're trying to solve, how they interact with the problem, their behavior behind it, their psychology, their fears, everything. And then fourth, don't ask hypotheticals. Like don't ask, would you use this? Would you pay for this? You're going to get a yes, and it's going to just lead you down the wrong path. Yeah, there's an important distinction to be made between customer discovery and customer validation. It sort of seems similar, right? Like you're both talking to customers with the intention of like building out a great product. However, customer discovery in the name is discovering who the customers are, right? At the end of the day. And secondly, how do the customers behave around this problem? What gaps do they solve? And then the next step is like building a product that solves those gaps or like fills those gaps and solves their problems. And then going back to them and being like, hey, can you use this? And getting insight on that. And then iterating is a really big step, which I'll get to later. But there's definitely a distinction between discovery and validation. Okay, I'll like hurry it up so we have a few questions. We leave time for questions at the end. This is important, I think, when conducting customer discovery, especially for CVC and the undergrad challenge, because you need to figure out like who you're actually what this product is, who this product is for, right? Like what is your demographic is really important. Who is this aimed towards? Who's going to actually use this? Two, sort of like the why question, people's psychology behind it. Why do they want this problem to be solved, right? Like what is their behavior around this product? Why do they interact with this product the way that they do? And from there, you can figure out other gaps that exist in their behavior and the products that they currently use to solve the problem. Three is like communication. How are you communicating with your customers? Social media is a really big thing, building out a website. And that all leads to like, who are you targeting? This we talked about a little bit earlier, like what are the qualities of your ideal customers? One, they're willing to pay. I think like when you're doing the undergrad challenge, you'll be asked to build out a business model canvas. And it's really important to figure out like who your stakeholders are in your user population. And more importantly, like, why are they coming back? They have to keep coming back, right? Like user retention is really big, not only getting users in the first place, but getting them to stay. Like the only way that people will stay is if it's valuable to them, if it adds value to their lives. If they communicate with you, I think it's important to like be able to ask your customers for feedback, and then also being able to relay your product to people out there, right? Like, is social media a good channel for you to get your product out there? Maybe your demographic isn't people who use social media, so finding ways around that. This isn't super relevant, like, to be honest, this part isn't super relevant to the undergrad challenge, mainly because a lot of the times, or I'll clarify, it's important for the CVC undergrad challenge later in the challenge. For the earlier rounds, it's important to just like talk to as many people as you can. Once you've done that and gained valuable insights and built like a minimum viable product, as in like it solves the fundamental product or problem that you want to tackle, then it's like, okay, how do I get this out there? How do I actually like test this on people, like customer validation? How do I test this on people in order to get feedback and then change the product accordingly? There's different ways you can do that as they're listed here. The first one is SEO, it's search engine optimization. It's essentially just a way, it's a process that optimizes how things are shown on search engines. So for example, Google, it's like the ones that show up like first are basically the ones most relevant to what you're typing into Google. Therefore, when you're building out a website, for example, it needs to be, the layout needs to be good. It needs to be very intentional about the demographic that you're trying to hit, and therefore it'll like show up more for people. Two, there's different marketplaces out there, and like Product Hunt is really big. Product Hunt is definitely a lot later stage when you've built out, like iterated a bunch of times and you know that your product is solid. However, social media is also really good, right? Like one of my friends who did the Columbia Venture Competition used primarily social media, I think, and online marketplaces to put her app on there and her website on there to be like, hey, like this is what I built, use it, and then reaching out to people who have used it for feedback. The fifth one is cold email outreach. This could totally work. I think that this one is just harder because the response rate a lot of the time for cold emails is like 10% or less. But it's definitely a way to get your foot in the door for people who, when it's like it's not as easy to like mass spread your idea through social media. But if you want to target like, I don't know, researchers or like professors, cold email outreach is a lot easier or a lot better than social media. Minimum viable product. This is after you've done your customer, I'll go back. This is after you've done your user research and customer discovery, although you do customer discovery and this user research even after you've built out your MVP, but the minimum viable product is a product that you'll build that's very rudimentary, that solves the root problem that you're trying to solve at its core. Not supposed to be aesthetic, not supposed to be like looking pretty or built out fully. It's just a way for you to test that the problem that you're trying to solve actually solves something. And the way to do that, as shown here, is you have an idea. And then this, like, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but anyway, this first arrow is like customer discovery, right? Like figuring out what product you actually want to build from this idea. So figuring out customer gaps, customer pain points, and then solving those through this like product or service. Then actually getting people to use it. Once you build something out, being like, okay, I want to see if this works. Does it actually, tackle something real, tackling something that exists? And then measuring how people respond to it, whether that's through like putting it on social media, how many people actually who sign up for the service actually end up using it. If people like it, if people don't like it, figuring out those metrics. And like one really good way to do that and like learning is through reaching out to the people who use it and being like, hey, like how often did you use this product? One really cool metric is like, if you're building out some sort of service, they sign up for it. Do they actually go through with using the service? And then this is a really important step in the design process, which is pivoting or preserving your idea or preserving your product. I think in the Columbia Venture Competition, especially, we're looking for people who talk to a bunch of people about the problem space, build something out, and more importantly, gaining really good insights. So it's important to test your MVP on people, and then more than testing it out, talking to the people who test it out and understanding how they interact with it. If you're building an app, for example, like there's certain metrics that you can like, or even a website, there's certain metrics you can track, like how long did someone hover over a certain feature, which means that they were thinking about it a lot, right? Like, or how long was someone on this page for? Were they reading? How long were they scrolling for? You can track those metrics online. So you could do that to find how long people spend on certain features, or you can have people test out the product in person with you, which is really important. You can see like where they're confused, what they're confused about, a bunch of insights that you can gain essentially. And then pivoting is really important. We're looking for founders who aren't stuck on their first idea. In fact, it's really unlikely that you'll be stuck on your first idea, or you'll be actually implementing your first idea, because it's either you have really good damn luck, or two, it's like you're too stubborn to change it. And the second one is really bad. You need to be an open-minded founder and like someone who takes their insights and learnings and pivots accordingly so that you can actually solve an relevant problem, rather than just sticking to what idea you had at first that's not validated by people. And in the application, we'll be asked, like, later rounds, we'll be asking you to present your insights, what you asked customers, and how you changed your product accordingly, and how you learned from it. Yeah, putting your product in front of users as quickly as possible is important, in terms of like talking to people very frequently, like having a goal for yourself. Each week, I'm going to talk to 15 people or like 20 people. That way you can gain insights really quickly, build something out, test it on people really quickly, and then fall fast and learn fast and build something out really great. This is a really interesting like diagram, because it shows that like, look, you have an idea, you build something out. So you have like an MVP, and maturity is like how deep into the building process you're in, right? Like you have an idea, you build this out, shit, I tested it out on people, doesn't work. Okay, back to the ideation phase. All right, what didn't work in my first idea? XYZ didn't work. Okay, let's change these things. So it's going to keep going in this zigzag manner, up and down manner. However, once you hit this point of like, wait, I learned so much from building this out. Okay, back to the ideation phase. What didn't work? Now, wait, now you're at a really mature and stable point because you've gone through this process of trial and error and developing this product to something that actually works really, really well. So it takes a lot of time in the beginning, but once you've hit the point of like, man, this works really well, solves a problem, people are interacting with it in very positive ways, you've hit gold. These are really interesting ways that some super successful companies have did their customer discovery slash also customer acquisition, which customer acquisition different than customer discovery. Customer acquisition is like once you have a product, shit, now I need customers, right, to actually like use it and interact with it and see how it works. So to clarify, this is later down the line, but I think it's interesting to know like sort of like steps ahead of you, what's to come, what you'll be doing later in the competition. Tinder and DoorDash, Tinder actually just like went to sororities and frats and was like, hey, like, this is a product that we're building. And what's really cool is that people were really interested in using it because they wanted to see other single people, right, in their campus or like nearby. And in addition to that, they want to know if people are really into obviously knowing if other people are interested in you. So that concept went viral, especially on college campuses, and that's sort of like how they got their push up. Netflix is also really cool because they got in this guy called Corey Bridgers, and like when Netflix first had it's like was first building their product, even before they had launched and like got customers, they brought in this guy called Corey Bridgers, and he went online and these online communities, like it says here on the internet, to like user groups, bulletin boards, and like different communities that were really, really into movies and like these DVD owners that were really into like watching movies, critiquing movies. Anyway, he entered these communities online, became friends with these people by like acting like he was like this movie connoisseur and like loved watching these things, added his insights there, talked to these people as friends, and then planted seeds of like Netflix essentially as he was talking to them even before they had launched. So once they had launched, he was like, oh my God, look at this cool thing that I found. And this is how Netflix got a bunch of users in the beginning, just through infiltrating this like online community. And that's how they found such a perfect fit and like a loyal target user audience. This is different than how Spotify did it, right? Like there's different ways you can do it. Spotify did it by keeping like exclusive at the beginning. So it's invitation only. When you like first joined as a user in Spotify, you had like 5 invites that you were allowed to utilize and spread it to 5 of your friends. That utilizes FOMO. People are like, oh man, I want an invite to be able to join Spotify. So it was useful in sort of like creating that exclusivity. People want what they can't have at the end of the day. So it created that too. It also like sort of helps Spotify like sort of control their user acquisition, as in like control their user growth. They didn't grow too quickly in terms of that. Okay. I will end it there, given that we have 6 minutes left. We can also stop recording so that people don't have to ask questions, and it being online. So that's the end of it. We'll pause it here. I'll stop the recording 1 second.